Pregnant wife visits billionaire husband. In the hospital, catches him flirting with his mistress instead. Lucy Carter never imagined her world could collapse in a single afternoon. 7 months pregnant, she rushed to the hospital after hearing her millionaire husband, James, had been admitted following a sudden health scare. Though their marriage had weathered stress from James's growing business empire, Lucy still believed in the love that once sparked so brightly. But stepping onto the gleaming hospital floor, she froze at the sight that shattered her remaining illusions. James, laughing softly and holding hands with his glamorous mistress, Alicia Freed. Heartbreak, betrayal, and fury erupted in Lucy's chest, igniting a storm that would change all their lives forever. Lucy Carter was no stranger to the complexity of appearances. At 28, she was accustomed to the raised eyebrows and envious glances from people who realized her husband, James, was not just successful, but a genuine millionaire entrepreneur. The Carters lived in a pristine suburban neighborhood in Westchester, where neatly trimmed lawns and luxury cars on the driveways whispered of comfortable affluence. Yet behind Lucy's gracious smile lay the knowledge that even her dream home could not dispel the tension festering within her marriage. For 5 years, Lucy and James had navigated the world of startups, late-night investor meetings, and mounting financial stakes. Lucy had once worked as an administrative assistant in a law firm, but after James's first big business triumph, she felt pressured to become the supportive wife, entertaining clients, overseeing elegant dinner parties, and eventually leaving her job to focus on family life. James insisted it was temporary, that once they had children, she could return to whatever passion she chose. But the relentless expansion of his tech consultancy business slowly eclipsed everything else. No one would guess from Lucy's wide brown eyes or gentle demeanor that she was racked with quiet anxiety. Nor would they suspect that James had drifted from the loving, humble man she'd first married. Long hours at the office, weekend conferences, and unreturned phone calls had become their new normal. Pregnant with their first child, Lucy found herself alone most evenings, drifting off to sleep while James sent her vague text messages about last-minute deals. Still, Lucy believed at her core that James was a decent man. She recalled how, in the early days of their marriage, he would surprise her with impromptu road trips to quaint beach towns. He used to joke about naming their future daughter Marina after the ocean that inspired him. He was a big dreamer, someone who wanted to lift them both out of modest upbringings and into a future of possibility. Lucy never doubted his ambition. What she feared was that his ambition had metastasized into something else, an insatiable appetite for success, status, and perhaps new temptations. Indeed, there had been whispers about James's behavior at conferences, rumors that he often entertained female colleagues with private dinners, that he enjoyed overly familiar banter. Lucy dismissed it as malicious gossip. She would not let idle talk poison her trust in her husband. She reasoned that good-looking, wealthy men were always subject to rumor. And anyway, James never openly crossed any lines, at least none that she could see. He always reassured her when she confronted him about rumors. She preferred to cling to that reassurance rather than wrestle with the possibility of betrayal. Everything changed one fateful morning when Lucy was tidying their living room, a lavish space brimming with modern art, plush sofas, and the baby's newest ultrasound pictures perched on the mantel. A phone call came in from Dr. John Henderson at New Haven Hospital, telling her that James had been admitted after a collapse at his office. Frantic with worry, Lucy forgot every simmering resentment and raced to the hospital. All the unresolved tension in their marriage receded as dread took hold. She told herself there were bigger things than late nights and rumors. The father of her unborn child needed her. She grabbed her purse, ignored the swirl of morning sickness, and sped to the hospital. 1,000 horrific scenarios played out in her head: heart attacks, strokes, some hidden illness. She prayed that James would be fine, that this was just a wake-up call for him to slow down. What Lucy didn't foresee was the heartbreak waiting in that stark hospital corridor. She never expected that. Instead of seeing a fragile, repentant James, she'd discover him in an entirely different embrace. And once that door opened, the entire facade of a perfect life came crumbling down. Lucy's heart hammered as she hurried down the hospital corridor, following the directions scribbled by Dr. Henderson. The antiseptic smell and gleaming white tile reminded her of sterile order, a far cry from the chaotic tangle of emotions roiling inside her. Pausing at a set of double doors, she took a deep breath. She was 7 months pregnant, feeling the weight of her swollen belly and the swirl of maternal instincts screaming that James, the father of her child, needed her. She envisioned James lying weak in a hospital bed, and her eyes misted. Despite the stress in their marriage, she wasn't ready to imagine a life without him. So, mustering courage, she pushed open the door to room 514. But the sight that met her eyes made her stop short. James Carter, bandaged around the wrist and wearing a patient's gown, was not alone. Leaning over him, with manicured nails resting lightly on his bandaged arm, was a tall woman with artfully curled black hair. Their heads were close, voices hushed in intimate conversation. Lucy had never seen her before, but her posture suggested more than casual concern. As Lucy stood frozen in the doorway, the woman whispered something that made James laugh, a soft, affectionate sound. Lucy had not heard from him in months. The blow to Lucy's heart was swift and brutal. She cleared her throat, voice shaking. "James?" Startled, James jerked away from the woman's touch. In that instant, Lucy glimpsed the guilt flickering across his features, followed by a forced attempt at composure. The mysterious woman straightened, flipping her hair back and eyeing Lucy with a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Lucy," James stammered, "what are you doing here?" I was going to call you as soon as you collapsed at the office," Dr. Henderson said to come immediately. Lucy replied, struggling to steady her voice. "Who is?" Her question trailed off because she already knew this woman wasn't a nurse or an old friend. The tension between them betrayed that the relationship was far more than professional. "Oh, hi," the woman interjected coolly, extending a slender hand. "I'm Alicia Freed, James's colleague." The pause before colleague was imperceptible to some, but Lucy heard it loud and clear. Alicia's posture radiated confidence, her fitted designer dress revealing a figure that Lucy, in her swollen pregnancy, could only dream of at the moment. Lucy's eyes flicked between Alicia and James. "I wasn't aware your colleague had reason to be by your bedside," she said, a quiet tremor sharpening her words. James tried to stand, but a wave of dizziness forced him back onto the bed. "Lucy, I'm sorry. I didn't want you to worry. I fainted from stress." Alicia was just here to drop off some documents for an ongoing project. He offered a helpless shrug, as though that explained the cozy exchange Lucy had witnessed. The baby kicked, as if protesting the tension. Lucy placed a protective hand on her belly. Her face heated with a mixture of anger and betrayal. She tried to maintain composure for the sake of the child. If she broke down now, would that help anything? Sensing the tension, Alicia quietly walked to the door. "I'll give you two some privacy," she said, though her tone conveyed reluctance. As she passed Lucy, Alicia offered a half-smile that felt more smug than polite. When the door closed, Lucy stepped closer to James's bed, tears pricking her eyes. "That woman is more than a colleague. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise," she said in a low, tight voice. James averted his gaze. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "How long?" Lucy's voice trembled. How long have you been seeing her?" His silence was answer enough. Lucy's entire being shook with betrayal. Memories of lonely nights, suspicious phone calls, and unexplained late returns flooded her mind. She realized with a sickening jolt that the rumors had been true. It took a near collapse for her to confirm it. She inhaled shakily, her face taut with pain. "You're in a hospital bed, and I discover you're intimately involved with another woman." "I can't even." Before she could finish, Dr. Henderson opened the door, concern etched on his features. He paused at the tension in the room, clearing his throat. "Mr. Carter, I came to check your vitals." "Mrs. Carter, is everything all right?" Lucy swallowed hard, forcing composure. "We're fine, doctor." She turned to James, voice steely. "We'll talk more later. For now, rest. I won't burden you with my presence." She pivoted and left, tears welling in her eyes as she strode down the hallway. Her heart pounded so fiercely that she feared it would bruise her unborn child. A single thought pounded through her mind: he betrayed me, and he doesn't even have the decency to hide it properly. Lucy Carter, the loyal wife who believed in second chances, felt her world tilt irrevocably. Only time would reveal whether she would remain standing in James's life or walk away forever. Lucy spent that afternoon in a haze, half numb and half raging. She drove home automatically, barely processing the route until she parked in front of their lavish Tudor-style house. The moment she stepped inside, the opulence felt like an insult: marble floors, gilded mirrors, custom furniture. All these things had once symbolized James's success and their shared dream of a prosperous life. Now, they felt like a hollow stage set for a marriage that was crumbling. Dropping her keys on a console table, Lucy pressed a hand to her belly and sank onto a nearby chair. The baby stirred again. A wave of guilt washed over Lucy. She was bringing a child into a home filled with secrets and mistrust. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. "You deserve better." Her phone buzzed, startling her. She saw it was Sarah Jenkins, her closest friend since college. Sarah was one of the few people who knew Lucy's anxieties about James's behavior. Lucy hesitated before answering, her voice faltering as she greeted Sarah. "Hey, Luce," Sarah said, a gentle concern lacing her words. "I heard from a friend that James was hospitalized. Are you okay?" "Is the baby all right?" At the mention of James's hospitalization, Lucy's throat tightened. How quickly words spread among their social circles. "Yes." "He collapsed from stress," she managed. "They're keeping him for observation. But, Sarah, it's worse than that." She recounted discovering James with Alicia Freed, how it felt seeing them intimately close. Sarah listened, occasionally murmuring support. When Lucy finished, voice trembling, Sarah said, "Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. I know you suspected he might be unfaithful, but to confirm it like that, especially when you're pregnant, this is just cruel." A tide of emotion Lucy had been suppressing gushed forth. "I'm so angry at him, Sarah, and at myself. I tried to ignore the signs." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "But part of me, I still love him. Or at least I love the man he used to be." "Can marriages survive something like this?" Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Sometimes they can, if both people want to fix things and are truly honest. But that starts with James taking responsibility. He can't keep secrets and expect you to carry on as if everything is fine, especially not with a baby on the way." Lucy thanked Sarah for listening and ended the call feeling slightly less alone, but still directionless. The house was too quiet, pressing in on her. She considered going back to the hospital to confront James, but her pride bristled at the thought. If he wanted to talk, let him reach out. She told herself she needed rest, but her mind churned relentlessly. That night, Lucy barely slept. She tossed in bed, remembering every sign she'd ignored: the affectionate text messages from unknown numbers, the mysterious jewelry receipts she once found in James's glove compartment, that he insisted were for a client appreciation gift. The memory made her chest hurt. She realized now it likely ended up on Alicia's wrist or neck. Over the next few days, James called multiple times, but Lucy let them go to voicemail. She wasn't ready to hear more excuses. She listened to one of his messages, her heart clenching at the sound of his weary voice. "Lucy, please. I need to explain. Alicia doesn't matter, she never did. I'm sorry." Yet no part of him mentioned regret that Lucy had found out, or regret for what he'd done. Instead, he sounded inconvenienced, like a man who disliked that his secret was out. As Lucy debated whether to return his calls, the hospital discharged James early, instructing him to rest at home. But James didn't come back to the Tudor house. He texted Lucy that he would stay temporarily in a penthouse suite downtown to focus on recovering. She could almost see Alicia's slender figure draping herself around that luxurious penthouse, playing the doting companion. Lucy fumed, but her anger was overshadowed by a gnawing ache in her chest. She realized the cracks in their marriage foundation were now fully exposed for everyone to see. The question weighed on her. Should I fight to rebuild what's broken, or walk away before the damage becomes irreparable? 4 days passed before Lucy finally agreed to meet with James in person. He insisted they talk privately, away from the hospital's prying eyes and Alicia's shadow. She chose a neutral setting, the Greenleaf Garden, a public park known for its manicured lawns and blooming rose shrubs. It was safer for her emotional well-being than inviting him back into their home, where memories lurked in every corner. Lucy arrived first, sinking onto a wooden bench near a pond. She watched ducks paddle across the water, wishing her life could return to calm waters. Her hand rested protectively on her belly, and the ring on her finger felt like a heavy reminder of vows that suddenly seemed meaningless. James showed up minutes later, wearing a casual blazer and looking unexpectedly pale. He had lost weight since she last saw him. Bandages still peeked out from under his sleeves, and his eyes were bloodshot, as though he'd slept poorly. Approaching slowly, he offered a tentative smile. "Lucy." She gave a curt nod in response, motioning for him to sit. For a moment, neither spoke. The chirping birds and distant chatter of park-goers filled the silence. Lucy couldn't help noticing that James smelled of the same cologne she had discovered on random articles of his clothing for months, an aroma that mingled with Alicia's perfume in her nightmares. "I'm glad you came," he began. "I've been trying to figure out what to say." Lucy inhaled sharply. The truth would be a start. Her voice wavered. "No half-lies or sugarcoating, James. I want to know about Alicia Freed. How long? How serious? Why?" He winced as though the questions physically pained him. "I met Alicia at a tech conference in Los Angeles about 6 months ago. We hit it off. She's witty, ambitious. At first, it was just business, or so I told myself. But eventually, lines blurred. He swallowed, looking anywhere but Lucy's eyes. "I won't lie to you, it became an affair. But it's not something I'm proud of." Lucy clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. 6 months, she repeated in a near whisper. "That's practically the entire length of my pregnancy. While I carried your child, you were off with her." James's eyes brimmed with shame. "Lucy, you have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you. This year has been so intense, investors pushing me for expansions, constant travel, the pressure to live up to everyone's expectations. Alicia, it was an escape from reality. A mistake. Don't call your mistress an escape," Lucy snapped, tears threatening to spill. "I was your partner. We were supposed to face challenges together." He bowed his head, shoulders sagging. "You're right. I've been a fool. I tried to keep up the perfect image, thinking I could handle everything my business, our marriage, even Alicia. But I lost control." Silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken resentment. Lucy studied James's bandaged wrist, recalling how frantic she'd been about his collapse. He reached out tentatively to touch her hand, but she pulled away. A ripple of pain crossed his face. "What do you want now?" Lucy asked softly. "To continue with Alicia? To hide again? Or do you actually want to fix this?" James exhaled, his voice trembling. "I ended it with Alicia," he said, meeting Lucy's gaze at last. "Right before you walked into the hospital room, she was pressing me to leave you, but I told her I couldn't do that, especially not with a baby on the way. Then you walked in and everything spiraled." Lucy wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. "Ending it with her doesn't erase 6 months of lies," he nodded. "I know, but I do want to fix us. I want to be a proper father. I realize I might have thrown away the best thing that ever happened to me." A tear slipped down Lucy's cheek. Her anger battled with the remnants of love she still felt. "Words aren't enough anymore, James. If you really want redemption, you have to prove it with actions, with honesty. And it won't be easy for me to trust you again." He placed a trembling hand over his heart. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes." They talked for another hour, dissecting past hurts and possible steps forward. James agreed to attend marriage counseling, to be fully transparent with finances and phone records, and to sever all ties with Alicia Freed. Lucy listened, weighed his sincerity, but withheld final judgment. She wasn't ready to fling the door wide open to him yet. As the sun set behind them, turning the sky a dusky pink, Lucy felt her baby move, a subtle reminder of the new life tying them together. She told James calmly, "I need time, and if you betray me again, you won't get another chance." He nodded, tears in his eyes. They parted ways, each uncertain what the future held. For Lucy, the confrontation offered a flicker of hope, overshadowed by deep pain. Rebuilding trust was a monumental task, but for the sake of their unborn child and the memory of the love they once shared, she decided, tentatively, to see if James truly meant his words. Lucy tried to move forward, albeit cautiously. She arranged for James to sleep in the guest suite when he visited the Tudor house he hadn't fully moved back in, and kept interactions civil but distant. The newly established boundaries gave her some semblance of control over a life that had spiraled. Each day, Lucy repeated mantras of self, worth and calm for the baby's sake. The couple's first marriage counseling session arrived quickly. Lucy worried about James's commitment, but he surprised her by arriving early, waiting patiently outside the therapist's office with a hopeful smile. The therapist, Dr. Teresa Monroe, was a middle-aged woman with a warm demeanor. She guided them through the initial session, focusing on open communication and clarifying expectations. Lucy felt a cautious relief to see James engaging sincerely. He apologized, vowed to be better, and accepted blame for his deceit. For a moment, Lucy allowed herself to imagine that maybe they could heal. Perhaps, in time, the cracks could be mended with accountability and effort. Even so, a small voice inside her warned not to let her guard down too quickly. That warning proved prophetic a mere week later. Lucy was napping her pregnancy, left her fatigued when her phone buzzed incessantly. It was a call from an unknown number. "Drowsy," she answered, only to hear a familiar female voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "Lucy Carter." Lucy's heart sank. Alicia Freed? She sat up, all traces of sleep gone. The baby stirred uncomfortably, as though sensing her tension. "Hello, darling," Alicia said smoothly. "I thought you should know James, and I had a little chat last night." Lucy's pulse pounded. "What are you talking about?" He said it was over between you two. Alicia laughed, a cold, musical sound. "Oh, that's adorable. He told you that, did he? Well, I have proof otherwise." A pause, then a shuffle of background noise. "Let's just say I have pictures of James at my condo in Midtown." He dropped by to pick up some work documents. We ended up talking about old times. The way he sounded, you'd think he's unsure about your so-called reconciliation. Lucy's grip on the phone tightened. Could James have slipped back into Alicia's orbit so soon? Or was Alicia lying to sow chaos? Both scenarios terrified Lucy. "I don't believe you," she said, though her voice shook. Alicia chuckled. "Believe what you want, dear. But if you ever want to see these pictures, or if you're curious about how James is truly spending his nights, just say the word. Then again, maybe you'd prefer to keep living in delusion." Lucy felt fury burn in her throat. "Listen, Alicia, I don't know what game you're playing, but stay out of my marriage. If James is seeing you again, I'll deal with him, not you." "Oh, I'm sure you will," Alicia purred. "But do yourself a favor, don't trust him so easily. Men like James always come back. They can't resist ambition, power, or a certain kind of excitement they don't get at home with a pregnant wife." With that venomous parting shot, Alicia ended the call. And trembling, Lucy stared at the phone, tears of rage forming. She told herself Alicia might be lying. James had seemed genuine about changing, yet Alicia's mention of pictures unnerved her. She dialed James's number. No answer. She texted him, but received silence in return. Each passing minute of no response heightened her dread. When James finally returned her call hours later, Lucy was nearly frantic. "Why didn't you pick up?" "Alicia called me. She claims you visited her condo." "Is that true?" He sighed on the other end, sounding weary. "Lucy, yes, I went to her condo to retrieve some client documents. But that's all. She tried to talk, but I left. I swear I'm not lying this time." Lucy forced air into her lungs. "And the pictures? She says she has pictures of you two together." James cursed softly. "She probably snapped some photos of me at her door. Lucy, I'm sorry. I should have told you. But you've been on edge, and I didn't want to upset you." A hot flush of betrayal surged through Lucy. "This is exactly why I can't trust you," she hissed. "You keep doing things behind my back. Whether or not you had an affair last night, you hid something from me again." James tried to explain, but Lucy cut him off. "I need some time alone," she said flatly. Then she hung up. Staring at the nursery in mid-renovation, Lucy's heart twisted. She recalled Dr. Monroe's advice about rebuilding trust through transparency. James had already broken that rule. Could they ever salvage this if Alicia kept pulling him in? That night, Lucy cried herself to sleep. The baby kicked restlessly, as if echoing her turmoil. She realized that as long as Alicia Freed lurked on the edges of their life taunting, meddling peace would be hard to find. Lucy felt more certain than ever that if James didn't cut Alicia off completely, Lucy would have no choice but to walk away for good. Lucy woke the next morning to a string of apologetic messages from James, each promising to avoid Alicia at all costs. He pledged to block Alicia's number, to fully disclose any business connections with her, and to provide Lucy access to his phone logs if needed. Though her anger burned fresh, Lucy recognized a measure of desperation in James's tone. Perhaps Alicia's harassment was finally pushing him to sever all ties. Needing clarity, Lucy scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Monroe. James joined her willingly, looking tense but contrite. Over the next hour, Lucy recounted Alicia's phone call, the claims about pictures, and her own sense of betrayal. Dr. Monroe listened closely, occasionally glancing at James. "Mr. Carter," she said evenly, "you say the relationship with Alicia is over, but you still had contact with her. Even if it was for business documents, Lucy's trust is understandably fragile. Why didn't you tell her you went to Alicia's condo?" James rubbed his forehead. "I was afraid of Lucy's reaction. I know it was stupid to hide it, but Alicia texted, saying she had a critical file related to an important investor meeting. I felt cornered." Dr. Monroe nodded. Avoiding Lucy's reaction only escalated her fears. For trust to regrow, you need total honesty. Lucy, how do you feel hearing James's explanation? Lucy's eyes brimmed with tears. I'm exhausted, constantly wondering if he's being truthful or if Alicia's twisting the story. This can't be good for the baby. The therapist's gaze softened. Stress can indeed affect pregnancy. James, if you want Lucy to remain in this marriage, you must prioritize her emotional well-being above all else. That means no secrets, no last-minute visits to Alicia. Understand? James swallowed. Yes, I understand. I'll do anything. They left the session with an uneasy truce. Over the next 2 weeks, James made visible efforts. He spent evenings at the Tudor house, cooking Lucy dinner and accompanying her to prenatal checkups. He offered to show Lucy his phone anytime she asked, though she rarely did, feeling guilty about turning their marriage into a surveillance state. Still, his gestures provided a tenuous sense of security. He also arranged a formal statement to Alicia, with Lucy present, telling Alicia to refrain from contacting him unless absolutely necessary for business. Alicia's voice dripped with sarcasm on the call. Oh, so the wife's listening in now. But James held firm, stating calmly that he was committed to Lucy and their unborn child. When the call ended, Lucy felt a surge of hope that maybe, just maybe, Alicia would back off. With that, a semblance of normalcy returned. Lucy's baby bump was now quite pronounced, and she found James's newly attentive behavior comforting. They revisited old joys, watching late-night comedy specials, reminiscing about how they fell in love. At times, Lucy almost believed they had turned a corner. She still fought moments of insecurity. Was he truly done with Alicia, or simply more careful? But for now, she chose to accept the peace on offer, lest stress overwhelm her. One afternoon, Lucy decided to share the baby's ultrasound pictures on social media. She posted a sweet caption about the baby girl they were expecting, garnering supportive comments from friends and family. James even commented with heart emojis. The warmth of well wishes soothed Lucy's battered heart. Yet, in the back of her mind, Alicia's mocking voice lingered. Lucy had seen enough drama to know that a scorned mistress rarely vanished without leaving chaos behind. She prayed Alicia had moved on, but the glimmer of cynicism in Lucy's heart refused to let her fully relax. And indeed, the sense of peace proved short-lived. Within days, Lucy would be forced to confront Alicia again, and this time, the stakes would escalate beyond a private feud into a very public showdown. Lucy was browsing a baby boutique for nursery decor when her phone buzzed incessantly. She glanced at the screen to see frantic messages from her friend Sarah Jenkins. Check the news. Lucy. There's an article about James and Alicia. Her heart lurched. Anxiety roiled as she scrolled through social media until she found the link Sarah mentioned. It was a piece on a popular local gossip blog, featuring photos of James at an upscale restaurant. The headline blared, "Millionaire entrepreneur James Carter spotted with mystery woman trouble in paradise." Lucy's stomach knotted. The accompanying pictures showed James seated beside Alicia Freed, apparently leaning in close as they shared a meal. The date stamp was from 2 nights ago, when James had claimed he was at a client dinner. This revelation dropped like a bomb. Shaking, Lucy fought to keep her composure. 2 nights ago, James had come home late, telling her the meeting ran long. She demanded no details, trusting his vow that he was done with Alicia. But the images were damning. The pair looked too friendly, almost conspiratorial. Worse, the article speculated that James's pregnant wife was nowhere in sight, fueling rumors that the mistress was still in the picture. Tears burned Lucy's eyes. She grabbed her car keys and drove home, ignoring the baby's restless kicks of protest. She tried calling James repeatedly, but it went to voicemail. She left a single, clipped message. "We need to talk now." At the Tudor house, she paced the living room, scanning the gossip sites' comments. People were speculating about Lucy's gullibility, the timeline of the affair, whether the baby was a last-ditch attempt to save the marriage. It was humiliating. Lucy slammed her phone onto the coffee table, adrenaline surging. She felt like a fool for ever believing James's reassurances. At last, James burst through the front door, breathless and wide-eyed. "Lucy, I saw your messages. My phone was on silent." She thrust the phone in his face, voice shaking with rage. "Explain this. Explain how you ended up at a restaurant with Alicia Freed 2 nights ago, after you swore you wouldn't see her again." He glanced at the screen, face paling. This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "Yes, I was at that restaurant, but not by choice. I had a client meeting with 3 potential investors, and Alicia showed up unannounced. It wasn't just the 2 of us. That blogger snapped the photos at the perfect angle to look intimate." Lucy's chest heaved with anger. "So you admit you were in the same place, at the same time, with her again, and you didn't tell me?" She advanced on him, tears in her eyes. "Do you see how this keeps happening, James? You keep me in the dark. Even if it was innocent, you always find an excuse not to warn me first." He let out a shaky breath. "I was afraid you'd panic. I tried to talk to her politely for a minute, told her to leave me alone, but apparently she lingered or orchestrated this photo op to sabotage me." Lucy stared at him, feeling her fury draining into bleak sorrow. Could Alicia have set him up? Possibly. But Lucy was emotionally exhausted from the constant swirl of could-haves and maybe-nots. She pressed her hands protectively over her belly, the baby's movement a reminder of her priorities. "James, I can't keep living like this," she whispered. "Every time we have a moment of peace, Alicia appears. Either you're not strong enough to cut her off, or she's determined to destroy our marriage. Either way, I can't handle the stress." He reached for her hands. "Lucy, please. I'm telling the truth. I'll handle Alicia. I'll get a restraining order if I have to. Don't let her break us." She lifted her gaze, tears flooding her cheeks. "I'm so tired," she murmured. "I don't know if it's Alicia or you or both, but I'm done feeling like a naive wife who's always the last to know. Until you figure this out, I need space." James's face fell. "Space? Lucy, you're pregnant, which is exactly why I need a stable environment," she cut in, voice trembling. "My friend Sarah offered me a place to stay if it came to this. I'll be safe there. Maybe we both need to decide whether this marriage is truly salvageable." He started to protest, but Lucy held up a hand. "If you love me, give me time. I can't breathe under all this scrutiny, all this uncertainty." James's eyes shone with tears, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. Just, please, take care of yourself and the baby." Lucy turned away, quickly gathering a bag of essentials. Moments later, she was in her car, driving towards Sarah's condo, tears streaming down her cheeks. The paparazzi might soon swarm their house anyway, and she refused to be hounded for a comment on her failing marriage. She told herself she was protecting her baby from the stress, but part of her heart felt like it was breaking irreparably. Sarah's condo was a small but welcoming space perched on the edge of the city. A cheerful doormat read "Welcome, friends," a stark contrast to Lucy's swirling gloom. Sarah ushered Lucy inside, helping her settle in the guest room, which had a pastel floral quilt and a reading lamp that bathed the space in warm light. The difference from her lavish Tudor home struck Lucy here. Everything felt personal, not curated for show. Once Lucy was settled, Sarah approached with a steaming cup of chamomile tea. "I can't believe James let Alicia corner him again," she sighed, handing Lucy the mug. "Or that he didn't warn you. How are you holding up?" Lucy sank onto the bed, exhaustion radiating through her. "I'm numb. Part of me believes he was set up. Alicia's manipulative, and she could easily arrange a chance encounter to get photos. But even if that's the case, I'm tired of living under constant threat. Sarah squeezed Lucy's hand. You're doing the right thing. Protect your peace. For you and the baby. If James truly wants to fix this, he has to handle Alicia once and for all. Lucy nodded, sipping her tea. I know. I just never imagined being this close to single parenthood. She placed a hand on her belly. I'm 8 months pregnant, Sarah. My biggest worry should be nursery decorations, not whether my husband is lying about dinner dates with his mistress. That night, Lucy slept restlessly, plagued by nightmares of Alicia laughing triumphantly while Lucy's child was caught in the crossfire. She awoke in a cold sweat, Sarah rushing in to reassure her. The stress weighed on Lucy's body, her back ached, and her nerves frayed as the baby's due date neared. She prayed for calm, though calm seemed in short supply. Days turned into a week at Sarah's condo. James sent messages daily, begging Lucy to come home. He insisted he was working on a legal measure to keep Alicia at bay. Lucy found the concept vague, but decided to see if he followed through. She needed more than words. She needed proof he could shield their marriage from Alicia's manipulations. During that time, Alicia found ways to torment Lucy. She posted a suggestive photo on social media herself, wearing a glimmering bracelet that Lucy recognized as one of James's old client appreciation gifts. The caption read, "Some bonds are never broken." Comments buzzed with speculation that James was still spoiling his mistress. Lucy tried to ignore it, but the anxiety gnawed at her. Then, one afternoon, Lucy's phone lit up with an unknown caller. She braced for Alicia's voice, but instead, a tired, defeated-sounding James greeted her. "Lucy, it's me. I've done it. I filed an injunction against Alicia. I want to show you the documents." Lucy's chest fluttered. "You did? How did that work?" James explained he had engaged an attorney, Karen Delaney, who specialized in harassment claims. "We're citing defamation and interference with business relations," James said. "Alicia's using these stunts to sabotage my work deals, plus harass you. My lawyer says it's not a slam dunk, but it's a statement that we won't tolerate her meddling." Lucy felt a sliver of hope. "That sounds serious. Do you think it'll actually stop her? She'll face legal consequences if she continues to defame or blackmail me," James replied. "It won't fix everything instantly, but it's a start." He paused. "Lucy, please, come see me, even if it's only to talk about the baby's birth plan." Uncertain, Lucy agreed to meet him at a neutral location, the lounge of a nearby hotel. That evening, Sarah drove her there, hugging her for moral support. Lucy's heart pounded as she stepped into the lounge, scanning for James among the clusters of people sipping cocktails. He spotted her first. Rising from a table by the window, he looked weary but relieved. He offered a faint smile, then slid a folder toward her. Inside, Lucy saw the injunction documents, complete with a restraining order request if Alicia continued her behavior. For the first time in weeks, Lucy felt that James might be taking tangible steps to defend their marriage. They spoke for hours. James repeated his remorse, describing how Alicia had manipulated him with promises of insider deals. Lucy listened, unconvinced but acknowledging the magnitude of what he'd done. No man so deeply entangled with a mistress would go this far unless he was serious. By the time they finished, Lucy was drained, but felt a tiny spark of renewal. She needed more than a legal paper, though. She needed a demonstration of unwavering devotion. "Show me, James," she whispered, her eyes misting. "Show me I'm not making a mistake by giving you another chance." He reached across the table, gently covering her hands. "I promise, Lucy, I'll show you. I want to be a real husband again and a father." When Lucy left that night, she felt a flicker of cautious optimism. The next steps would be critical. With the baby nearly due, she questioned whether they had enough time to truly regain trust. But at least, for now, James had set a boundary with Alicia Freed. Only time would tell if it held or if Alicia had one more scheme up her sleeve. As Lucy's 9th month of pregnancy approached, James moved back into the Tudor house. Initially, Lucy insisted he occupy the guest bedroom, but gradually she allowed him more access to shared spaces. They prepared for the baby together, choosing a crib, painting the nursery walls a soothing lilac, and reading up on newborn care. Though Lucy's heartbreak still lingered, James's renewed dedication offered a fragile hope. Meanwhile, Alicia Freed seemingly vanished from their radar. Her social media went quiet, no more cryptic jabs or photos flaunting jewelry. James's attorney reported that Alicia had been served legal notices warning her against further defamation. Lucy and James dared to believe Alicia was out of their lives. It felt almost too good to be true, but old anxieties died hard. Late one evening, Lucy lay awake in bed, the baby pressing against her ribs, uncomfortable Braxton Hicks contractions stirring. James slept in the guest room, exhausted from a grueling day of investor meetings. Lucy scrolled through her phone, half expecting some new scandal to appear. Instead, she found nothing, no new gossip articles, no alarming calls. Relieved, she drifted into a fitful sleep. The next morning, Lucy awoke to a frantic knocking at the front door. She hurriedly wrapped a robe around her expanding waist, then willed herself calm as she opened it. A courier stood there, holding a large envelope. "Delivery for James Carter," the courier said, handing it over. Lucy thanked him and shut the door, a sense of dread creeping in. James, bleary-eyed, descended the stairs. "Who was that?" "A courier," Lucy said, brandishing the envelope. It was unmarked, except for James's name, scrawled in a messy script. "Should I open it?" He nodded, worry etched on his face. Together, they pried it open to reveal a stack of glossy photographs. Lucy's heart plummeted. Each photo depicted James in compromising positions with Alicia, some older pictures from hotels, others more recent. Lucy felt her cheeks burn as she noticed timestamps that extended well beyond the date. James claimed to have ended the affair. Some pictures even suggested Alicia and James had been together after Lucy discovered them in the hospital. Lucy's breath caught, a strangled sob escaping. "These can't all be real," she whispered, eyes darting to James. "You said it ended 6 months ago. These timestamps show less than 3 months ago, 2 months, even a month. Did you see her again?" James's face blanched. "Lucy, I swear I have no memory of some of these. They might be doctored. Alicia's trying to set me up. She must be desperate." Lucy's tears spilled over. She had no idea what was real anymore. "James, after everything, I gave you the benefit of the doubt. If any of these are real, if you slept with her even once while lying to me," her voice broke, fury and grief mixing, "then I'm done, absolutely done." He rummaged through the photos, cursing under his breath. "I recognize that hotel suite. Alicia invited me there under the guise of a business deal months ago, long before the hospital incident. She's messing with the dates. Look, some timestamps are blurred or cut off. This is a sabotage attempt." Lucy wanted to believe him, but the avalanche of images hammered her fragile trust. She stormed upstairs, tears blinding her. James followed, pleading for a chance to prove the photos were doctored. "Karen Delaney can check authenticity," he insisted. "Lucy, please." "I wouldn't risk everything again." Locked in the bedroom, Lucy pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the baby stir anxiously. "Leave me alone," she said through the door. "I need time to think." James hammered softly on the door. "Lucy, I love you, please." But Lucy slid to the floor, choking on sobs. Could Alicia be so vindictive as to create fake evidence, or was James lying yet again? The swirling uncertainty tore at Lucy's heart. She glanced at her phone, noticing a text from an unknown number. "Have you seen the pictures yet? They're just a taste of what's to come if you don't walk away." Lucy nearly dropped the phone. Alicia was truly out for blood, or horrifyingly, was Alicia truly confident about the affair continuing? All Lucy knew was that her child was due any day, and instead of feeling joy and anticipation, she felt dread. She realized she couldn't keep subjecting herself and her baby to this toxic spiral. Whether Alicia's claims were real or fabricated, Lucy faced the crushing sense that she'd never be free of betrayal as long as James was in her life. That final blow sealed her resolve. She would protect her child at all costs, even if it meant raising her baby without James Carter. Lucy spent the next 24 hours in an anguished haze. She locked herself in the bedroom, sifting through old text messages, financial records, and anything that might confirm or deny Alicia's photographic evidence. James paced outside, calling lawyers, insisting that they could prove the pictures were manipulated, but Lucy's battered trust had finally reached a breaking point. By the second night, Lucy's physical stress climaxed. She woke at 3 a.m. to a jolt of pain in her abdomen, sharper than any Braxton Hicks. A second wave, more intense, caused her to gasp. This time, she felt a wetness trickle down her legs. Her water had broken. Panicked, Lucy staggered out of bed, calling for James. Despite their estrangement, he raced in, eyes wide with alarm. "We have to get to the hospital now." She could barely speak through the contractions. "Yes, hurry." James supported her down the stairs, practically carrying her to the car. He sped through the deserted streets, hazard lights flashing, Lucy clutching the seat, tears streaming down her face. She was terrified of the pain, of the baby arriving amid turmoil, of the uncertain future. But as each contraction ripped through her, Lucy found clarity. She would face this with all the strength she could muster, because her child deserved every ounce of courage. That street, Barnabas Hospital, doctors and nurses whisked Lucy to the maternity ward. James stayed by her side initially, gripping her hand, murmuring encouragement. Lucy clung to him through the worst contractions, comforted, despite everything, by his familiar presence. For a brief time, they were simply parents united in a crisis. 12 hours of labor later, Lucy heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby's first cry. Overcome with relief, Lucy sobbed as a nurse placed a tiny, squirming girl on her chest. She was perfect, rosy cheeks, delicate features. Lucy whispered, "Welcome, my sweet angel," tears of wonder mingling with exhaustion. James stood near, tears shining in his own eyes. He reached out to gently touch the baby's head. "She's beautiful," he choked out. Lucy felt a pang of longing for the marriage they might have had if betrayal had never come between them. During the next few days, Lucy focused on recovering and bonding with her daughter, whom she named Amelia Rose Carter. She treasured every feeding, every gurgle, every little yawn. James hovered, trying to help, but the tension remained. Lucy couldn't forget the photographs or Alicia's threats. She let James hold Amelia under supervised visits, refusing to let him take the baby anywhere alone. On the third day, Lucy's doctor cleared her for discharge. She wrapped Amelia in a soft pink blanket, tears welling as she realized she was going home. But to what environment? The nurse asked if James would be driving them, but Lucy shook her head. "I'll call my friend, Sarah." James's face flickered with hurt. "I can drive you, Lucy. I want to be there for Amelia's first moments at home." Lucy stood tall, eyes steeling. "James, the first needs space to think. We can't act like a happy family after everything. I appreciate your help, but I want to stay with Sarah for now." He swallowed hard, glancing at tiny Amelia in Lucy's arms. "I understand," he said softly, "but I'm not giving up on us." Let me know how I can support you financially with the baby, anything." She nodded briskly, fighting the urge to break down. Sarah arrived moments later, and Lucy, cradling Amelia, walked away without looking back. In that moment, she felt heartbreak and empowerment coalesce. Yes, she was stepping into single parenthood's unknown territory, but she was also freeing herself from living in fear of Alicia Freed's next move or James's next betrayal. In Sarah's car, Lucy gazed at Amelia's peaceful face. The baby seemed unaffected by the chaos around them, content in her mother's arms. Lucy kissed Amelia's forehead, whispering, "It's just us now, sweet girl. I promise to give you the world, no matter what." As they pulled away from the hospital, Lucy felt the first stirrings of a new dawn in her life, one defined not by illusions, but by fierce love and unyielding resolve. Thank you for following Lucy's harrowing journey through heartbreak, betrayal, and a powerful rebirth of self. Despite the shock of finding her millionaire husband flirting with his mistress in a hospital room while she was pregnant, Lucy discovered an inner strength she never knew she possessed. Her story shows that even when love sours and illusions shatter, a new dawn can emerge from the darkest nights. With her newborn daughter, Amelia, Lucy forged a future built on honesty, self-respect, and unwavering maternal devotion. If you were moved by Lucy's dramatic story, please tap that like button to show your support. Share it with anyone who appreciates tales of resilience and redemption. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama fiction that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Your engagement helps us bring you more powerful stories. Thank you for watching.